Hello, beautiful beings who are made in the image and likeness of God. Every time I think about that statement, it blows me away that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Like here's a pen, and if I made something in the image and likeness of this pen, it wouldn't be exactly this pen, but it would be more like the pen than not. That's a powerful thing to think about. That you are made in the image of, and when I say you, I mean me and we, that we are made in the likeness of God. Now, I may be made in the image and likeness of God, but I'm a simple mortal. So the theological repercussions of that, I don't even claim to know and understand. But right here, right now, there's the feeling of I'm more like my maker than I am different from my maker. And there are extreme differences, I'm convinced, but I'm also convinced there are extreme similarities. And for me, it comes down to fundamental goodness. That's the way that I think about it. That my maker is inherently good and kind and loving and fair, and that's what I am in my essence. I'm like my maker in that way, and that's gotten clouded over by a number of things. But that really gets at the essence of what I want to talk about today, which is what a phrase came to me, and I call it the Christian wound. And there's a lot of components to it, but I think the fundamental way that modern Christianity, and by modern, I'm talking primarily from about 500 AD onwards, when the notion of eternal hell became a formal doctrine, and when the notion of universal salvation or universal reconciliation, that everyone would be saved or reunited, was declared a heresy by the Catholic Church under the orders of the Roman Empire. From that point onwards, that's when I consider the creation of modern Christianity. And that paradigm has dominated up until this day. That paradigm is now finally getting challenged. I mean, it's been challenged here and there, but it's starting to get challenged kind of on a big level. And I'm happy for that, because that can now restore restore the actual message of Christ, the good news that everyone, and not just everyone, everything, all of creation will be redeemed and restored. So the Christian wound. So this teaching that most people will either end up eternally in hell or be destroyed forever with no hope of reconciliation or salvation. It's not only, do I believe, untrue, it is harmful and toxic beyond words. Because what that means is that, we throw around the word God, but what is God, right? The supreme reality, the source of all that is, the maker of all that is, our source, our maker. But even on a deeper level, the fundamental aspect of reality, or you could say the foundation of reality, as we understand it, the absolute basis of everything. Just the words that come are the fundamental principle of reality. And reality is kind of an abstract word. So let's just say the fundamental principle of life. According to the modern Christian teacher, that fundamental reality, principle, basis, source is sadistic and insane and worthy of fear, and truly like the ultimate terrorist. So the modern Christian message is, accept Jesus Christ or accept a particular church or a particular interpretation of the teachings of Christ in this lifetime before you die, or you will be tortured forever or destroyed forever with no hope. So it's truly the most horrific horror story ever created by human beings. And you can look at the history of it. Two great resources for the history of it. One is an article called How Hell Became Eternal. And if I put it in the chat, it'll just disappear. You can Google How Hell Became Eternal, or there's a Wikipedia article. Let's see. There's two of them. So let me make sure I send you to the right one. Christian Universalism on Wikipedia has a great article on how this idea of eternal hell was just created by just a mistranslation. Like that's really the entire origin of it. And but history aside, it's truly the most barbaric, horrific idea ever conceived of by human beings. And the first person to conceive of it was a pretty twisted guy. You can read a little bit about him. Tellurium. Let's see. I'm going to look it up real quick. Tertullian. You can look it up. So this person was so sick and twisted that when he would think about people who sort of rejected Christianity or rejected, again, his version of Christianity, like them being tortured in hell forever, and this like made him happy. And he's the first person in written history we have who, this somehow made him very happy. That's really where the origin of this crazy idea comes from, is from a very sadistic human being. And it's a very sadistic idea. It paints a picture of reality, of the source of reality as the fundamental, basis of life, as cruel, sadistic, unforgiving, impotent, a failure. It'd be like, so imagine a human parent who just abandons their child. Like, it's considered one of the worst things you can do, right? Who just gives up on their child and abandons their child. And just says, and I'll never have anything to do with you again. Imagine a parent doing that to like a 4-year-old. Like, no, you're bad. I give up on you. Like, how sick and twisted and really evil is that? So this modern idea of eternal torment, eternal damnation, really creates an image of God that's evil, which is terrifying, which is utterly terrifying. And hence it leaves people with this primordial terror of life and of existence. Now, intellectually, and to a certain extent spiritually, I've rejected this idea. But sometimes when I'm in a place of prayer or meditation, when I go really deep inwards, I find inside of me this terror that this is still true, even though I've rejected it on one hand. And what I believe I'm getting in touch with is not present moment feelings, but that sense of terror that I lived with as a child as I was indoctrinated into what I consider to be a cult. I consider modern Christianity to absolutely be a cult. It really does meet the criteria on many levels. And so what this idea that I'm developing of the Christian wound or the Christian wounding is, it leaves us with a sense that reality or life or our maker is unreliable, is scary, is a terrorist, should be feared, is sadistic, is unfair. And it creates kind of this fundamental paradigm or view of life or approach to life, that life is at its root evil, or again, cruel or unfair or sadistic, or a horror story. And from that place, it's really impossible to trust God, to love God. Like, you can say, I love God, but if you're simultaneously terrified of God, you can't really trust or love something you're terrified of. So the opposite of everything I'm talking about is what early Christians believed. They believed in a God that would never give up, for whom 99 out of 100 sheep was not enough. They believed in a God that was so powerful, so loving, and so good that God, he, she, it, our source, our maker, would triumph over all problems, would ultimately heal and reconcile everyone and everything to itself. In the Bible, this is called the final restoration of all things. And it's sprinkled all throughout the Bible, this vision of heaven and earth uniting, the garden being restored, all people being brought into oneness, every knee bowing, every tongue confessing. That life would become so wonderful that children could stick their hand into a nest of vipers and the vipers wouldn't bite them. Like a vision of oneness, of goodness, of love being completely all pervasive and including everyone and everything, even snakes. There's multiple references to even snakes will be peaceful in this vision of a restored creation. But I think what touches me the most is this idea of God as a true parent and as a healer and as a teacher and as a redeemer, who is able to redeem and heal and reconcile and forgive even the most twisted or lost soul. That all of us in the end are prodigal sons and daughters, and all of us will be welcome back. It's a completely different view of life and reality. And it's one of hope, and it's one of love, and it's something that's trustworthy. And it's also consistent, because for those who believe in eternal damnation or eternal destruction, God is basically bipolar. On the one hand, God is love and forgiving and just and fair. And on the other hand, God is just absolutely unforgiving, unloving, insane, a torturer, and a sadist, to put it lightly. I don't feel that the most horrific curse words on the planet come close to describing how putrid and vile is this image of God. I was debating with a Christian once, and they're like, yeah, eternal hell is just. And I sent him a picture of, I found this, I don't go looking for it, but I found this picture of someone burning an animal that was alive and torturing animals. And I'm like, okay, watch this for 1 minute. And then imagine most of humanity going through this forever, and tell me that your God is good. And the person couldn't do it. Because our conscience knows that that's not only untrue, but it's wrong. It's amoral. It's not just amoral, it's horrific. It's not just horrific, it's barbaric. It's not just barbaric, it's primal brutality. If that's God's nature, then God's nature is primal brutality. And our hearts and our souls, when I pray, when I spend time in nature, when I do service, when I read scripture, that's not the feeling that I get about God. The feeling I get about God is goodness and love and kindness and wisdom. And yes, correction. That's the problem with this vision of eternal hell, is there's no correction. There's no opportunity for learning. It's just game over forever. And it's completely contrary to the good news that Christ came to share, and that actually the Jewish prophets taught about a universal. They didn't use the word universal reconciliation, but a universal harmonization of all of creation and all of God's children. All right, beautiful beings, thank you so very much for spending some time with me. Hope you found this video helpful. And please let me know your thoughts. God bless.